Our final topic, resourcing catechists and families. So resourcing, this sounds like a very important thing that we should be doing. And perhaps you are. If you are resourcing, we'd like to hear the ways that you resource your catechists and families. Deacon Matt, give us a few tips on resourcing.
Right. So these tips are really in two buckets. One of them is administration, and the other one is more formation. So, an administrative tip, keeping everyone apprised of any changes in your parish or diocesan policies. Sometimes the changes in policy aren't concurrent with the calendar year. Sometimes these changes come out mid-year. It could be changes in religion standards, guidelines, could be changes in terms of social media use. We've been talking about using your social media accounts to evangelize. Whatever it is, just to make people abreast of those changes as soon as you get them. We know painfully those who've been in that DRE role, that CL role, if we don't communicate those changes quickly, they come back to bite us. So to avoid being bitten in the new year, just make sure that we're communicating whatever changes need to be shared more. And I'll actually go down to the bottom, because that bottom point is another administrative point. So we'll just stay in the same bucket here, but consider developing a communication plan that includes, when, how, why you're contacting families and catechists, for a couple of reasons. One, this way everyone knows kind of when to expect communications from you. That doesn't mean that you can't, extemporaneously send an email or a text or whatever it is. Of course you can do that. Of course you can be personal and go out of the box. Jesus goes out of the box all the time with us to show us his love and care. So of course you can, but to just set up expectations, because people like knowing, when to expect a call or an email from the parish, from the DRE. So that's one reason to have that plan. And another reason to have that plan is that it keeps you from over communicating, in the sense of filling up parents' email boxes too much with communication. So it keeps you kind of on an even keel. It kind of keeps your communications steady as you move through the months. And I know as a parent that we really appreciate that. So a communication plan, if you haven't put one together before, it is a new year, or will be the new year, and a time for resolutions, that might be one for you. So shifting out of the administrative bucket into the formation bucket, we're into those second and third points on the screen. And this is a little unique, all right? So what about, it's just a suggestion, adopting a tasks of catechesis framework for how you resource how you resource your catechists and families, and when possible, connecting those resources also to the liturgical season. Now, it'll help to have a little visual here to see what we're talking about. All right, so we know the tasks of catechesis, or maybe we don't, because in the new directory, we now have 5 tasks rather than 6, and that call to missionary life and discipleship, which used to be the 6th task, is now sort of a golden thread that runs through the 5 tasks that you see on the screen. But the idea here is these tasks are critical for catechesis. You're catechizing as a DRE by your witness, certainly by what you teach. But what about sort of, again, a plan for how you want to resource catechists and families? Like, for example, let's say we want to focus on that first task of catechesis. Families need to grow in their knowledge of the faith. Catechists need to grow in their knowledge of the faith. What if you chose January as your month to kind of highlight that task? And you're going to send a resource that helps mom and dad grow in their faith, and a resource that helps your catechist grow in their faith. And maybe it's the same resource. Maybe it's the Sunday readings with a reflection that you came up with, or one that you found on the internet that you find really inspiring, or something like that. Or something from Sadlier, which has wonderful resources. But the idea, again, is to use these tasks as a way to organize how you resource your parish community. Or let's take another example, initiating into the celebration, and it should say of the mystery, not oh the mystery.
Oh, the mystery.
I know we're in O Come, O Come, Emmanuel. We have those O antiphons, so maybe that's what was on my mind when I typed it, or I just didn't type it correctly, which is probably what happened. But if we went with that, to send something out, for example, that connects with the Advent season, or if we're in Lent, that connects with initiation in the catechumenate, whichever one of these tasks. The only other thing I would suggest is, again, part of your communications plan keep these communications simple, these resources simple, very easy to use. Don't overwhelm people with the complexity of a particular resource, something that's real simple to use. And let's try to keep to one resource per month. If you want to, that way you're touching on each of these 5 tasks at least twice a year. And that way you can be a little more assured that you're not only catechizing, maybe you have a class as a DRE, or maybe you're catechizing catechists through on catechist formation days or something like that. But this way, all year round, you're providing a catechesis to the parish community that is touching on all these important tasks of catechesis. It's just something to think about. So again, it's sometimes when we get into the silo of administration, we forget that this is also about evangelization. And when we forget those things, we don't think about, we don't get creative and think, you know what, I don't just need to find a resource. Maybe I could find a resource that catechizes according to the tasks that everyone should be growing in. So that's our suggestion to you for how we can resource catechists this season. And I'm going to go back to this slide.
Can I
Steve, I'm
jump in
bringing you
really
back
quickly?
on. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to share what a fantastic suggestion. When we talk about the tasks of catechesis, we're always talking about them as all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so breaking those down that way, in a systematic way where we can really think about one at a time, helps people to digest what it really means. So from the leader role, we are putting this in the forefront of people's minds and providing resources, which is what we're talking about, resourcing catechists and families.